What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Turnover on Downs. We are back from a couple-week hiatus. Joining me, as he does every week, is my co-host, Kyle. How's it going today, Kyle?
Not too bad. How about yourself, Jake?
Well, it's going pretty good. It kind of sucks we haven't got a chance to get on here and talk a little bit, but, we're finally here, and we missed a lot of football, that's for sure. So what I wanted to do, instead of doing what we typically do with going through our predictions, is we just kind of want to take a look at the playoff picture and see where we're standing right now. Obviously, it's – what week is it now? Week 13?
Yep,
week 13. Yeah. So week 13, and we just kind of want to clarify some stuff, like who we think is going to get those last couple wild card spots, or even who's going to end up winning these divisions. So to start things off, we're going to talk about the NFC. So me and Kyle talked, and we both kind of agree that we expect that's the Saints to get the 1 seed, and probably the Rams to get that 2 seed. I think that's pretty clear cut. They're both 10-1. Even if I could see the Saints getting the 2 seed as well, but I think that's pretty clear that those two are more than likely going to get the 1 and 2 seed. So that leaves the rest of the NFC. So let's just start talk about the NFC North. NFC North is in a little bit of a particular spot. Minnesota's only a game and a half back on Chicago, and they do play once more this season at Minnesota. So that could be an interesting one. Who do you see end up taking that division, Kyle?
I kind of go back and forth with this one. I think the Vikings are a more talented team. Just so more well-rounded, good defense, good offense, just kind of a complete team, than the Bears. But with a game and a half lead, I think they still play each other at least once. I'm going to go with the Chicago Bears to win that division, but I do think the Vikings will get one of the wild cards.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you there on both those points. If you look at their remaining schedules, Chicago's still got L.A. They get L.A. at home. L.A. Rams, they're not San Diego Chargers anymore, but it is L.A. Rams. They do get that team at home. But other than that, and at Minnesota, all their games at the Giants, winnable. Green Bay, really winnable. And obviously the Chicago can go beat San Francisco. But if you look at the Vikings schedule, they're at New England this week, at Seattle the next week. They still got to play Miami, still got to come play Detroit, and then they're playing Chicago. So that's a pretty hard games, couple games left for Minnesota, especially to try to regain a 1.5 game lead. They could do it, but I think overall, it's going to be Chicago winning this one out. But like you said, I do think the Vikings will end up getting one of those wild cards. So this might be outside of AFC South, the closest division. The NFC East. All season long, Washington's been controlling this division, and all of a sudden, Alex Smith goes down. He's out for the season. And, Colt McCoy's probably not going to lead this team that many wins. So I think it's safe to say that Washington's probably out of the running. The Giants are outside looking in, 3 games back. At this point in the season, it's probably way too much games to make up. So I think that really leaves the Dallas and the Eagles. Dallas is certainly sitting at 6-5 atop of the NFC East, while the Eagles are only a game back. Even with the catastrophic season that the Eagles have had, if you all suddenly look, they're only a game out, and then they are at Dallas next week. So that game that can easily be made up. We'll have to see where that goes. I do think the way that Dallas has been playing right now, I do think that they're going to end up winning that division. They do have a tough game against New Orleans this week. But other than that, I think all their games are pretty winnable, especially with the formula they've been playing. Zeke's finally getting it going. Amari Cooper just seemed unlocked in this offense. But yeah, I'm going to take the Cowboys who end up winning that division going forward. Who do you got with Kyle?
I'm going to argue against that, actually. I don't know, maybe it's my inner hate for the Cowboys. I think I'm going to have to go with the Eagles to win this division. I think that they're kind of, again, a more complete team. And they still got that head-to-head matchup, so they can easily, they win that, they could definitely win that division. And I'm thinking Cowboys definitely have a chance for the second wild card, but I'll actually pick a different team for one of the other wild cards.
Yeah, it's definitely fair just to say what you're saying. The only problem I have with the Eagles is they have no corners right now. Every week, another corner is going down. That secondary is just so depleted, and they still got to play the Rams, Houston. I just think with those passing attacks, I just think that's going to end up weighing too much. But you did mention Dallas getting a wild card, so we probably should predict. I think we both agree. If you look at the wild card race right now, it would be Minnesota and Washington. And I don't know how you feel about Washington, but I'm writing them off. Are you as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, their defense is legit, don't get me wrong. But until they get a good quarterback, I mean, Alex Smith were playing okay, but I think they just need someone who would go in a different direction. So if you look at the wild card race, the Lions are 2 games back, Atlanta's 2 games back. They're probably not going to do too much going forward. So I think that's going to leave 4 teams. I would say 5 teams. I'm not going to count Green Bay out just yet with being a game and a half back. I'm not going to take them to win, but my 2 wild card spots, I think I'm going to pick Minnesota and Seattle. Seattle's just been – I mean, we just talked about Minnesota, but Seattle's just been playing a decent brand of football. That offense looks rejuvenated this season. Russell Wilson's arguably top 3 quarterback in the league. Yeah, I just think that with that running game, the way and even their defense has been playing pretty well the last couple weeks. Yeah, I think that with the way they're rolling, they're definitely going to go get that second wild card spot along with the Vikings.
Yeah, I definitely like both of those picks. I think I'm going to actually have to agree with you. I was kind of back and forth between the Seahawks and the Cowboys, but I'm thinking the Vikings in the second, kind of like you said, we already talked about the Vikings, but the Seahawks were playing great. They got the tiebreaker over the Panthers with the win last week. And, yeah, I just think Pete Carroll's been really coaching this team. Obviously, Russell Wilson pulls off that magic. Well-rounded and a better schedule going forward.
So did you consider Carolina at all, or did you just kind of, no, I'm out on Carolina? Or?
Oh, no, I definitely consider them as well. But, I don't know, lost, I think, 3 straight now.
Yep, 3 straight. They took that bad loss to Pitt, came to Detroit and lost, and then they just lost to Seattle. So they're in quite a bit of skid. And right before that Pittsburgh game, I know I was thinking it too. I was thinking they're the second best team, or the third best team in the NFC. So, yeah, we'll definitely. I mean, they're at Tampa this week, but they still got to play New Orleans twice. And with that Seattle game was huge. Just losing that tiebreaker is just going to come back to bite them, I think. But
yeah, for sure.
Let's move shift gears now over to the AFC. So the AFC is in quite an interesting spot right now. So let's just break this down division by division, and then we'll get into the wild cards. I think that would be the best way to do this. So let's start out with maybe the most clear-cut one right now. I would say the AFC East, obviously. I think we both agree that the Patriots are going to win that one. Miami's 3 games back. They're not a good football team. And I don't even know if the Jets and Buffalo count as football teams this season. So, I think New England will pull that one out pretty convincingly. They do every year, so I don't think that'll be anything different.
Yep, I agree with you on that one.
And then the AFC North, Baltimore is only currently sitting at a game and a half back. They have won 2 straight. They look pretty rejuvenated right now with Lamar Jackson at the helm. They're at Atlanta this week. They do got to go play KC and at the Chargers. So they got a couple hard games left. But outside of those, so they probably will not make it, especially with the rookie quarterback. Pittsburgh does scare me a little bit just because the way they've been playing lately. And they still got a lot of hard games left, too. They played the Chargers this week. They still got to go to play New England, and they're at New Orleans still. So those games will definitely not be easy by any means. You could easily look, and the Steelers are suddenly are 2-3 in their next 5 games. So I'm a little skeptical, but I'm going to take Pittsburgh just because their offense is so talented. I think it's hard not to pick them just because I think eventually that much offensive talent on that one side of the ball is just too much for any teams to overcome.
Yeah, a lot of good points there. I'm going to agree with you on that one as well. I think the Steelers will pull off the AFC North. I think kind of a weird, random, very specific prediction. I'm calling that the Steelers are going to go into New England and win, and it'll set up a pretty cool storyline come playoff time. I just have a hunch about that.
Well, I think, no, that's a good prediction. I think the game is in Pittsburgh, actually. I might have misspoke. Yeah, the game is in Pittsburgh.
Oh, okay.
Yep, so that even helps them even more because everybody knows Patriots are not the same team on the road. So, yeah, obviously I think, Steelers have the offense to beat anybody, even the Saints. Like, say what you want, but, with Big Ben, Antonio Brown, Juju, and James Conner, they can go put up 50 on anybody, just like the Saints can. I think that obviously they don't have good as a play caller, Sean Payton. But overall, that offense is just too good. So let's move on to the AFC South. Right now, Houston currently has a 2-game lead over Indianapolis and a 3-game lead over Tennessee. He's been playing some good football. Started out 0-3 on the season. Now all of a sudden you look and they rattle off 8 straight. And if you look at their remaining schedule, they play Cleveland this week. Then they're playing Indy, at the Jets, 3 really winnable games. At Philly, winnable, I think, at this point in the season. And then they play Jacksonville, which, who knows is even going to be starting for Jacksonville at that point. So I think overall, Houston's going to be the team here. I do think that Indy, the way they've been playing, I do think they're going to go snag one of those wild card spots. But I think that just that 2-game lead and that easy Houston schedule at this point in the season, I just think it's going to be too much for Indy to overcome to win that division.
Yeah, definitely good points, and I think I'm going to agree with you again. Going forward, I like Indy a little bit more. I think they'd be a little bit more dangerous come playoff time. But the Texans with the easy schedule ahead and then a 2-game lead with only 5 games left, I don't think the Colts will have enough time to catch them. But not to take anything away from the Texans. Their defense has been playing great. J.J. Watt's been healthy all year, which has been nice. And then Deshaun Watson, he can run, he can throw the ball. Hopkins will catch anything in a 20-foot radius. And, they're a dangerous team as well.
Oh, no, I get your point about the Colts thing. I just think it's the fact that we've seen Andrew Luck do it before. Not too long ago, it was the Colts versus the Patriots in the AFC Championship game before he did sustain those injuries. And, all of a sudden, Andrew Luck looks like that guy again, that number 1 overall pick. So, and if he can keep playing like that, I think they can go beat anybody. Quarterback play is just so important. But the AFC West – this is an interesting division right now, I think. Chargers are currently only sitting a game back. All the talk about, Kansas City this, Kansas City that. The Chargers have had a pretty good season. Their only losses came to the Rams and KC early in the season, and the other loss came to that Denver loss a couple weeks ago. Other than that, though, they've been playing pretty good football. They still got to go. They got to go to Pittsburgh this week, so I think we're going to learn a lot about both those teams. It's one of the games I'm most excited for weekend. They're at KC in a couple weeks, but versus Cincinnati, versus Baltimore, at Denver. Even with that Pittsburgh game and that KC game, I could easily see them going 4-1. And if they can win that KC game, they all just suddenly could be looking at this division. But I'm not going to bet against the Chiefs. Not yet. They've shown the whole, they got Oakland twice on the schedule, Baltimore, and then there's Seattle, and then that Chargers game. So I think they're both going to end up probably going 4-1 throughout that stretch. So I don't think, that game is just going to be so critical. But I think I'm going to take the Kansas City Chiefs because I do have that game at home. But, yeah, it's definitely going to be a close one.
Yeah, definitely a lot of good points there. I think hard to say which one's the better team on paper just because We always know what the Indy Reid teams do come playoff time, and then rookie quarterback or basically a rookie quarterback at the helm. I never know how he's going to react under the pressure. But yeah, like you said, I'm not going to bet against the Chiefs. I think they're going to win. I think the Chargers are a more experienced team and a team that could be dangerous going forward. But just with that, game back, I don't think they'll overcome that, especially with the Chiefs' upcoming schedule. And then not to leave the Broncos out, impressive couple of wins in a row now. If there was a third wild card spot, I'd say that they would probably get that. But I have a hard time, moving Indy out of that second wild card spot.
Yeah, because I think at this point it's pretty clear cut that Chargers is going to get, or hypothetically, they could win the division and Kansas City gets that first spot, which, all of a sudden, if we could be looking the Chargers are one of the first seeds in the AFC and Kansas City's in the wild card, that would be insane. But, so one of those teams I think is obviously guaranteed a spot. And like you said, I don't think it's going to be – Denver has been playing better as of late. But a couple of those bad losses early on, I think, are just going to come back to bite them. So, but yeah, so I think we're in agreement, though, that Chargers and Indy get those last couple spots.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. And, that would be some good playoff matchups, Would have Houston versus Indy, and then Pittsburgh versus the Chargers. So those are two games I'd really want to see, I know, for me. And then, over in the NFC – we'd have some good games over there too. We'd have probably Chicago and Seattle and then Minnesota and Dallas, or if you think Philly's going to win. But either way, those are some good games. Seeding might change a little bit, but we'll see where that goes. But yeah, so I think we do want to do our performance of the week for still. Even though we're not going to talk about many of the games from last week. And then we're going to get right into our predictions for Week 13. But Kyle, who did you have for your performance of the week last week?
Last week I took, I guess, a little bit more situationally than statistically. But I took Kirk Cousins, huge win over the Packers to kind of, I think, not eliminate the Packers out of the playoff race, but, definitely put them in a pretty tough spot. But yeah, Kirk Cousins played pretty well, or actually really well. 29 for 38 for 340 yards, 3 TDs, no picks, quarterback rating of over 120. So really impressive all around. And then just coming up clutch, kind of silencing some of the doubters that are saying that they overpaid Kirk for no reason. I think he's showing just how dangerous he can be.
Yeah, and that point you alluded to is he's finally earning that money. Those are the games that they're paying him to win is against the Packers, those big divisional games. He didn't show up against that Bears team, but like we said earlier, he's still got another shot to prove what he can do. But I kind of did the same thing as you did, situational. Maybe not the best stats-wise, but Russell Wilson. We alluded to them beating the Panthers earlier. But he was 22 for 31, 339 yards, and only 2 TDs. But if you were to watch this game, he's the one that was making all those plays in those fourth quarters. And we talked about how huge of a tiebreaker this is, especially in the NFC wildcard race as it's heating up. So he showed out when it mattered. He made those big throws down the stretch in the fourth. And Russell Wilson, he's something else to watch. He's so mobile. He's so good with his feet. He's just so hard to defend against, and not to mention that cannon of an arm he has. Everyone always talks about his running ability, but he's just such an accurate passer, especially for someone his size. And of what he really can do for that offense, he just puts that team on his back, and they go. That team goes as Russell Wilson goes. So just wanted to give him a little shout out this week, even though it wasn't the best stats.
Yeah, for sure. And kind of going back to that fourth quarter comeback win over the Panthers. There's a play. I think there's about 5 or 6 minutes left. They were down by a touchdown, I believe, down by 7. And it was 4th and 3 at Carolina's 35, and Russell Wilson throws it to the end zone. Like he knew he had it, and he put it right where he needed to be, and that's what tied it up. Yeah,
and yeah, he's just something else. I could watch Russell Wilson. I could talk about Russell Wilson all day. I think he's really proven that he's obviously a top 5 talent, if not a top 3. So So let's just hop in right into these predictions for Week 13. We got a couple good games this week. I'm excited for a couple of them. So the first game I want to talk about is Chicago and the Giants. Though Trubisky is expected to be back this week after missing last week. And I know Giants are only 3-8, but they have been playing better as of late. They gave the Eagles all they could handle last week, and even rattling off a couple wins before that. They're at New York, but I think with that great Chicago defense, and the Giants really not having much to play for, and Chicago's still in the thick of a really tight divisional race. If not, we're at least trying to keep that 3 seed in the NFC. So I think Chicago's going to pull this one out just on the strength of their defense. I just think it's going to be way too much for even that great Giants offense with Odell and Saquon to overcome.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you there. I think the Bears are just a better all-around team, better coached, better quarterbacked. Obviously you mentioned there are a couple of stars, Odell and Barkley. And, they're definitely, I think they're better than anybody else or anybody on the Bears besides maybe Cleo Mack. But anyway, I just think they're all around better. They're going to take this win in New York.
Yeah, for sure. And, that was the one game we struggled trying to find another one. But all these other games, let's just talk about Thursday Night Football. We are recording this on Wednesday, so tomorrow night. New Orleans is heading to Dallas. This is a little tough. I know New Orleans has been playing pretty well as of late, but they're at Dallas. Dallas, they might have the perfect formula to beat New Orleans and running the ball, keeping that ball out of Drew Brees' hands. I think this game, I look in the line to 7.5, which I think is a little bit too high for this game. I do expect New Orleans to pull it out, but I think that's I think it's going to end up being by a pretty small margin, about 3, maybe 4 points. But I think the Saints will end up pulling off a close one there.
I can kind of see where you're coming from. The Cowboys do have some top offensive pieces that can kind of keep up with the Saints for a little bit at least. But Saints 10 in a row, beating everybody they've really come across so far. So I think they'll go into Dallas and take a win from Jerry Jones.
Yeah, no, and like we said earlier, Saints are probably going to the Super Bowl. So they're just too good. And honestly, I think it will say a lot about Dallas if they can't play that team close. So the next game I want to talk about is Cleveland Browns heading to Houston. Both these teams are arguably playing the best football of the season right now. Baker Mayfield, he's finally figuring it out. He looks great under offensive coordinator Freddie Kitchens. Hugh Jackson's gone. A lot of the Browns' problems look fixed. And Houston, like we said earlier, 8 games straight. Sean Watson looking good. But I think I'm going to roll with the Browns in this one. I think this Baker Magic thing is kind of real. I think Houston's kind of due a loss. And the way that Cleveland's been playing, I think I'm going to take them in a close one. I think it's going to be a tough one, probably about a score of maybe 21-17.
Yeah, that's a pretty good call. I kind of went back and forth with this one, but I actually kind of agree with you on there. The Browns, I'm a big Baker fan, but the Browns have looked good since they fired Hugh Jackson. And then I guess you made a pretty good point there. The Texans kind of do a loss. They've had really easy schedule for the most part. While they are a good team, I think they might stumble on this one finally and lose, pretty close, maybe 21-24.
Yeah, and I'm actually really surprised. I know me and you talk about all the time about how much we love Baker, and he's looked really good last couple weeks. And I know it's been worse against some of the worst defense in the NFL, but at the end of the day, sometimes that confidence is all you need. And he's been playing pretty well all season, so I'm excited to watch that, excited to see how he does against a better Houston defense. But the next game I want to talk about is Minnesota at New England. We were talking about earlier that if Minnesota really wants to stay in the thick of this divisional race, they probably need to go in New England and win. But I don't see that happening. New England's just a whole different team at home. They're still New England on the road, but that's where they've built like who they are. All the years of having those home playoff games, and now that it's starting to heat up to the playoff race, that crowd's gonna be rocking, ready to go. And Sony Michel's back. He's finally really figuring it out again. It seems like had a good week. So Josh Gordon, Edelman, this offense finally seems to be coming together right at the right time for Tom Brady and Bill Belichick.
Yeah, the right time for them and the wrong time for pretty much everybody else in the league. Once Tom Brady and Belichick get rolling, it's generally till the Super Bowl. So excited to watch this one as well. I think Kirk Cousins is going to go in there. I think he's going to play really well. I think Adam Thielen will pull off a big performance. But yeah, like you mentioned, Sony Michel coming back. James White's looked really good. And then Gronk finally healthy, seems like again. So, I just think with the home field advantage, I think it'll be too much for Kirk Cousins to overcome.
And yeah, if you look and, how many people did you hear say a couple weeks ago that, the Patriots probably aren't the same team and every year, and all of a sudden they're sitting at the 2 seed right now. Current playoffs ended today. They'd get a first round bye. And that just shows you how good the Patriots really are and how much they're underrated. So, the last game we want to talk about is, I know, the game I'm most excited for this week. Sunday Night Football. We got the 8-3 LA Chargers traveling to 7-3-1 Pittsburgh Steelers. Two of the best offenses in the league right now. Phillip Rivers is having a career year. And all these Melvin Gordon might not play. I think that would be a really big hit for Pittsburgh. LA. That would definitely help Pittsburgh out. I think since this is at Pittsburgh and Melvin Gordon, I want to make two predictions because if Melvin Gordon plays, I might take the Chargers. But if he's not going to play, I think I got to take Pittsburgh. So right now, I think he's day-to-day. So I'm going to bank that he plays. Usually players do with their day-to-day, especially this big game. So I'm going to take the Chargers. Probably to win by a really high offensive battle, something by the score of like 35 to 28 or something along those lines.
All right, good call there. This one is a pretty tough one, and I'll definitely be tuning in Sunday night. I'm going to say the Steelers will pull this one off. They've played kind of all right as of late. A really shaky game against the Jaguars in the first half, but I think they will pull it off at home. They got all their offensive pieces clicking, and even if Melvin Gordon does play, he's probably not going to be full snap count, full health. So I think it'll be enough to overcome Rivers and the Chargers.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, I think we're going to learn a lot about these teams this week. This is the first game that they've played like playoff caliber opponents in quite a couple weeks now. So I'm excited to see how they fare against it. But yeah, is there anything else you want to talk about? Anything you'd like to add?
I don't really think so, other than I support Bruce Arians to the Browns.
Bruce Arians. Oh, I've been kind of seeing that too, and he did such a good job with Arizona. So I'd be interested to see who he'd bring as offensive coordinator to help bring Baker along. But from a fit standpoint, they probably need a guy like that that's established and can go in there and get the job done. I kind of was thinking John Harbaugh for that. I know we talked about it. Kind of like that soup, but it's kind of the same purpose. Established guy that's won the league before. So, yeah, that's definitely a good call. I think that's all that we have for you guys this week, but we will be back next week. We won't be skipping again. So until next time, we will see you guys next week. Thank you guys so much for listening.